Hey there, graphic designers. Today we're going to take a look at drawing in perspective. This is the second part of the video. The first part was how to get the actual perspective grid onto the screen and manipulate it so that it's looking the way that you want. So if you haven't viewed that one yet, go ahead and take a look at that one. To start drawing in perspective, all we do is choose any of our drawing tools that we would like. So I'm going to start with a square right here. Up here is our indicator of which plane we're actually drawing on. So blue is highlighted right now. So when we draw, it doesn't matter where we draw. It's going to draw in perspective on that plane for us. So if I was drawing a building, I'm going to start down in the corner and make it like that. If my second part of the building is going to be drawn, I got to switch over to my orange plane, come back down here, click and drag. Now this is where some people like having that grid pattern turned on, because right now it's just sort of free form of trying to get it lined up. And if you turn on that snap to grid, you guys can use that grid to orient yourself a little bit better and make sure things are properly aligned. Now that I got the second side drawn, usually light is going to hit it at different angles, so I might come in here and take the one side and lighten it up so it looks like we got our darker side and lighter side. If we're going to draw windows, I'll draw windows on my blue plane for right now. Aside from clicking on our little doohickey up here, I could push the number 1, 2, and 3 and it'll rotate through for me. So I'm drawing on the blue plane right now. Give that a blue color right there. Now, if I want to move this and make a copy of it, we're going to use, instead of our selection tool, we're going to use our perspective selection tool, which is located underneath our perspective grid tool. The reason we're going to use this guy is that when I click and drag, it's going to actually move it in perspective for us, making it smaller or larger as we move around. If I go with my regular selection tool, it won't do that for me. It just moves the overall location, doesn't shrink the size and perspective for us. So I can use my perspective selection tool, get it where I want, and if I hold Option, that's how we make a duplicate, and I can hold Shift and it'll lock it along the same angle for me. I can make more of these by selecting them, holding Option and dragging downward. Now I can move them over onto the other plane as well. So if I want to take and grab these two, I can hold Option and drag. And then they're still on that blue plane, but if I push 3, my keyboard's not working right now, but if you guys push 3, it will take and flip over, there we go, flip over onto the correct plane that you're choosing for you. So let me hold Option, do it one more time, push 3, and there we go, place down the other one. And again, I might play with the lighting, so maybe taking the shade of it, going a little bit brighter as if light is hitting it at a different part or a different angle for us. Layers is going to come in real handy for this. I'm going to make a new layer and start drawing another building. So let's say I want another building back here and I want like a little space in between looking like it's an alleyway or something. I'm going to grab a different color for the building. I'm going to choose just a god-awful red. Make sure that I'm on the correct plane. And maybe this is going to be a taller building. So there's the first part of it. I need to make the second part, which is going to be on the orange plane. Get it lined up. Draw it back and line up the corners. Again, keeping the lighting the same, or maybe we make it a little bit lighter. But my problem is that this building is on top of this guy right here. Now that's fine because I have them on separate layers. So all I got to do is reorganize, put that building behind, and now we have that space in between there. As we're going through this, if I want to add a street on here, I can take and, again, just always using layers, name them. So naming them as you guys are going. So if I'm looking to draw a street, that's going to be on the base layer right here, the green layer. Go with more of that gray color. Move it to where it needs to be. And just sort of draw it in where it needs to go. Oops, put it on the wrong layer. So remember, if you got to move things from one layer to another, you can select them, choose the layer you want to go to, and do an object arrange. Send to current layer. So now it's on that correct layer, and I can move it around if I need to. I'm going to actually take and make these a little bit lighter here, as if it was like more of a sidewalk. And then on my blue grid, and do a little bit, darken it up as if it was a curb. And then go back down to my green layer, and maybe this is where the street starts coming in. As you guys are drawing, you want to take and details is the most important thing, getting shades and colors correct. Everything that we draw doesn't have to be in perspective. So if I was going to draw something like a light pole or a tree, we'll do a tree just because I'm going to draw one of my notoriously bad shapes right here. So I'm going to shape build these all together. If I can find it. There we go. Make it a green color. And then we'll give it a quick little trunk. So things that are normally rounded, you're not going to want to put into perspective. So let's shrink this down a little bit. We'll place it where we want it to be placed, maybe back here or something. We could always place it behind the building if we want to. But something like a tree or anything that's rounded is going to stay flat, and we're not going to put it in perspective. So if I was to take this and grab my perspective move tool, I can take and by pushing one, put it into perspective, but it's not going to look right because things that are rounded we want to keep flat because it's just the way that perspective works. Okay, so things like light posts, fire hydrants, any details that you get in there that are rounded, you want to keep on the flat plane, which is this lighter blue right up over here. And that's about it with the perspective tool. I'm going to show you guys really quickly the 1-point perspective because that's a little bit different if you're going to draw in that mode. So if I go to view, perspective grid, and then switch over to the 1-point perspective, I can draw on the left side of the room, and then I have the ability to take and slide over my plane to draw on the right side of the room or the right side of the street, whatever you're going to take and do. And when I draw then, we're coming along the other plane, or the other side. I could hit the bottom and then give it a floor that we're drawing in. Now the problem comes in where we want to take and move this grid back to this left-hand side. Because if I don't get this lined up perfectly, everything is going to be drawn at weird angles, which we don't want. So the way to solve this is that we can take and choose our object, and once our object is chosen, we can say object perspective, move plane to match object. And that's going to take my plane, shift it right over to where my actual object is, and place it where it's supposed to be. So if you're moving back and forth with your grid in a one-point perspective, again, choose the plane, say object, perspective, move plane to match object. So that this way you know that you're drawing at the same perspective from when you first started.